Fit to Love, episode 127, Becoming a Warrior for Love.
Fit to Love is physical, emotional, and spiritual fitness to achieve the happy life you deserve. From exercise to cooking, relationships, and spirituality, you'll find all the inspiration you need right here with our host, JJ Flizanes.
Hello and welcome to Fit to Love Sexy Saturdays. Today's show, Becoming a Warrior for Love, learning how to fight for your relationship. We are very honored today to have Dr. Debra Mandel. She's AKA the Love Warrior and is a nationally renowned psychologist, author, blogger, and TV radio personality with 20 plus years experience. Combining wit, wisdom, and compassion, Dr. Debra has helped millions of people overcome their woes and learn to thrive. If you haven't yet met Dr. Debra in person, you may have seen her on many of the top-rated national TV shows like Tyra Banks, The Today Show, and The Early Show, or heard her on over 400 radio programs on a variety of topics, especially those centered on love and intimacy. She also co-hosts a weekly call-in advice radio show, Talk It Out, on latalkradio.com, also available as a podcast. Dr. Debra has authored 4 books, including the widely publicized Dump That Chump by Harper Collins in 2007. She has written a Dear Dr. Debra column and has been regularly quoted in articles for many national magazines such as Glamour, Fitness, and Cosmopolitan. Dr. Debra earned her doctorate from the California School of Professional Psychology and was licensed to practice in 1989. She is a member of the American Psychological Association and the Los Angeles County Psychological Association. She works with individuals, couples, and families with a range of specialties from relationship and daily life issues to depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and addiction. When she's not out helping people transform adversity into strength, Dr. Debra loves spending time with her family and friends and her 2 favorite furry felines, Bobby and Prowler. I didn't realize you were a cat person.
Oh,
Me too. Welcome to the show, Dr. Debra.
thank you so much. Yes, I love kitty cats. I love dogs. I actually love all animals. They're all amazing.
Me too. I really do love all animals. I'm a cat person first, but there isn't an animal that I would turn away from if in need or needed to be fed or given some kind of care. So let's get right into this topic, becoming a warrior for love, learning how to fight for your relationship. So why do you consider yourself and how do you consider yourself a warrior for love?
Well, I've been working in this field for many, many years, and I've specialized in working with couples and relationships. And so I can tell you, I have seen it all from infidelity to losing one's feelings for somebody. But over the years, I've realized that a long time ago, I probably threw in the towel with people much earlier than I would now. A lot of times you go, oh, there's plenty of fish in the sea. There's another partner right around the corner. Why work with one? It's too much work if, there's something else better on the other side. But then over the years, it seemed like, what? I think that a lot of relationships, if people had the right tools and the right understanding of how to reach each other in a language of love that actually appealed to each of them and got over their stubbornness, that they could definitely find ways to resurrect, reconnect in the ways that they originally did when they were courting and fell in love.
I agree. Absolutely. In fact, I'm a big proponent of that. The problem is usually with you, the person who is having the issue. And that absolutely, I mean, even just of my own experience, that I think when you can tap back into, like you said, that why you were attracted and why you got together in the first place. And then to realize that some of that adversity is to challenge you to grow and not to be a red flag of that it's time to quit. Don't be a quitter. So I love it. I love Warrior for Love. Can I be part of your tribe?
Please, please. But we have to learn what those distinguishers are, because there certainly are relationships that are just not worth saving, where there's been abuse or somebody will not take responsibility for their behavior, or repeatedly they're doing things that are just out of bounds, like serial cheating, or doing things like, getting into an addiction and not taking responsibility for that and trying to overcome those things. And, then you can't turn lemon into lemonade at that time. You just can't. And sometimes you just have to say enough is enough and this isn't going to work. But before you do that, I think it's worthy of connecting with your partner in a way to ask the question, do you think we have what it takes to make this? Do you have enough love left? Do you have enough attraction left where if you learn the right ways to go about this, you could actually have probably even a better relationship than you had when you first got together?
Absolutely. So, what kinds of relationships do we have a definition or a list of relationships that are worth fighting for versus those? I mean, you mentioned addiction, but is there anything more specific or an outline?
Well, I think it's really important to first see somebody's character, right? If you actually ended up in a relationship with someone who over the course of a couple of years you recognize they just don't have the character that you thought you signed up for, somebody who's a liar, a cheater, a thief, and really doesn't recognize those behaviors, a chronic manipulator, somebody who really doesn't have any self-awareness at all, dump them. As one of my books say, dump that chump. I mean, it isn't going to work. And if it's a woman you have to dump that chumpette because it's just you're going to be barking up the wrong tree and it isn't and you're going to feel bad about yourself the longer you stay in a relationship like that. Then the more you lose self-esteem, you lose your sense of value. It's very hard to come back and actually feel a positive sense that there can be a healthy relationship for you. So again, yes, abusive people, people who put you down, somebody who needs to feel better than you all the time. So if, let's say you're with a guy and he needs to, in front of other people, always, throw you under the bus or do things that embarrass you. And then you call him on it and he says, hey, that's your problem. Get over it. Or that's just who I am. That's the kind of person that I would say those characteristics in that person are not going to bode well on trying to work on a relationship and make it magnificent. The ones that I think are worthy of working on and can is when two people have sort of just fallen into ruts, where they've ended up in roles and responsibilities and rituals and they get too busy with the day-to-day mundane things and they've lost that magic with each other. They've lost that companionship. They've lost that ability to play, but the love is still there and they were in love at some point. You ever met people who you talk to them and they're 10 years in and you say, "Well, did you ever love him or did you ever love her?" And the person says, not really. Then you say, well, what are we gonna get that we could bring back? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I knew a friend when I lived in New York who knew before she went down the aisle that she didn't love him and this wasn't the right relationship. And so definitely in that situation, I 100% would agree that if you knew going in, like if your gut really said no, but something kept you going anyway, and that you kind of doomed from the start because you didn't really have that strong connection. Absolutely. I think that sometimes when people did have that connection, and actually that's something I do want to talk about because I think the starting point of your relationship, wouldn't you agree, is kind of color and determine whether or not there's a longevity. I mean, if it's based on like two incomplete, quote unquote, people who've got a lot of dysfunctions come together and they're kind of unhealthy emotionally before they get to, as they get together, versus two sort of people that have worked on themselves and they're happy independently without the other person, and that they chose that person from a place of desire, not a place of lack or need or desperation, that they may have a better chance, if you will, or there's a brighter future ahead for them because they're not necessarily trying to look to have the other person fill the needs that they didn't get.
Absolutely. I mean, the description of the latter, the couple that is much healthier as individuals, and then they come together with a solid foundation of connection and a mature love together, are going to have a much greater fighting chance to reconnect and make the relationship better and stronger if they had gone astray for a while. If their lives had sort of become too busy and they got preoccupied with other things and they forgot to actually nourish and nurture the relationship. And the two people who come together out of need, I will say, I'll confess here because I'm pretty open about myself. I ended up in a relationship with somebody, let's say starting back in my 20s. I had this very long-term relationship, on and off, the worst, most dysfunctional relationship one could ever imagine. And it was with a guy that I was very in love with, and he was very in love with me, but we were such damaged people. We were just so not able to pull this off. And we would break up, and he would propose to me and then break up over and over and over again, probably 55 breakups in 5 or 7 years. I mean, it was just appalling. And I would always go back, but we didn't go back with new tools. We went back just because we loved each other, but not because we knew how to get along or overcome our hurdles. And sadly, that set a foundation for me to believe that, oh, relationships are all chaotic. They're all crazy. They're not going to work. And, then I had another one like that not many years after that because I'd had a terrible breakup with somebody else. So I was one of those serial monogamists that would go from one extreme to the next, falling madly in love and then saying, oh, that doesn't work. So I'll try to be with somebody who I don't care about that much because maybe I can just make it work because I won't be so overwhelmed by the emotions of this person. But that didn't work either. So I think I've gotten much smarter with my heart over the last several years, and I'm currently in a wonderful relationship. That is probably the best I'm ever going to do. So every time I even consider for a moment, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work. I've got to run for the hills because I'm a fleer. I say, wait a second, hold on. That's not appropriate here. It's much more valuable to try to work this out, move through it, and find a better way to communicate. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Have you heard of, or do you practice, or have you experienced imago therapy?
My favorite, yes, I am trained in it, and there's a couple books out there that are fabulous, and I work with couples a lot with imago therapy because we really do need to understand the historical data that we bring to a relationship when we're in a coupling situation because our backgrounds and all of the wounds and the inner child issues and all that stuff, if they're not healed, they will rear their ugly heads in every way, shape, and form in your relationship. Even if it's a really good relationship, somewhere along the line, those trigger points are going to get active.
I was introduced to imago therapy years ago, and I was excited about the concept. And I have to be honest and say, and I've even interviewed someone, we have a show about imago therapy. And what I clung to and what I really appreciate, what I think in my mind is the healthiest and the best takeaway from imago is that the whole idea that you choose your partner to heal the wounds of your past. That alone was actually that idea, which is what transformed my relationship and actually, I believe, allowed me to, because I also come from a belief that based on my own experience, as well as all the studies I've done, that it doesn't necessarily take two people to heal a relationship, that one person can do a lot of work on themselves and release any of the triggers that they have. And that energetic healing gets translated to the other person. So for instance, I'll just use myself as an example, that I asked myself, okay, so I kind of understand why maybe I trigger you and what wounds you need to heal. But for me, I'm a pretty healthy family relationship. And so I'm like, wow, what is it? What is it? What do I need to heal? That's the reason why I chose you. And so when I figured it out and when I kind of go, oh, that's what that is. And it's a pretty big thing. It's actually allowing people to suffer their own consequences. It's to heal that rescuer in me to want to help and save everybody. And once I saw that and I worked on that, and then I also worked on when I would be blamed for something, I got really defensive. And I thought, you know what? That's a trigger for me. If I can just allow the other person to do what they need to do and experience and process their emotions the way they need to process it and just be here with love and have it not affect me, then maybe that will change. And it did. Absolutely. And it transformed. So I love imago therapy, but I love the concept of it. I love the idea that you were choosing this. I don't necessarily love that the other person may be required to behave differently to sort of soothe that. I think independently people would do better of healing their own wounds. Tell me a little bit about your experience with imago, even on yourself, with couples that you work with and on transformations. I've got a couple that I know, they've gotten divorced, but the wife, this was her second marriage, and she comes from a modeling where her mother has had 3 or 4 marriages. And so what I said to them before they got divorced was, please, 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 please go to imago therapy. Figure out why you chose this person so that you can heal that. So that way, when you move into the world, whether it works out or it doesn't work out, so that you don't do it again. Just what you're talking about in terms of, keep recreating it. It's going to rear its ugly head. You're going to do it again if you don't heal it. Of course, that went in one ear, not the other. But,
Oh, and
yeah.
you're right there. That's exactly what my favorite word in relationships is that we will tend to recreate what we're most familiar with, and unless we change that pattern. And our assumption is that people are going to be just as we are familiar with their being. And so we actually push people through projection into, even if they weren't going to be what we thought they would be, they'll be that anyway. So if it's negative, they're more likely to develop more negative characteristics. And if it's positive, they're more likely to rise to the occasion and also demonstrate more positive characteristics. I also love what you said about not putting all the onus and the responsibility on somebody else needing to change in order for you to feel better, because that puts you in such a disempowered position. It puts you in the position to be waiting with bated breath for, oh, if only my partner would get me and get that, then I wouldn't feel this way. But you're just never going to grow that way. But when you can say, all right, so my partner does tend to push these buttons in me, but what are those buttons? How can I learn to react to those differently? And as you're describing for you, you learned to not be a rescuer. I had to learn to overcome my tendency to actually make people mad at me so that I would not feel good enough, because I was so familiar with not feeling good enough. And so I would actually probably unconsciously do many things that would sabotage somebody's love for me because I carried so much shame. I had a guy I was with for a while who once said, you're like walking through a beautiful house that has potholes in it. You never know when you're going to hit that pothole and fall deep into the shame hole and never be able to get out. And so I had to learn how to have more self-confidence, how to depersonalize things that really weren't personal, not feel so under the gun of being criticized or attacked, and kind of really grow to accept myself so that my shame was healed so that I wouldn't carry that forward in relationships. So it's really important that we look in the mirror and we see what are the things that we're projecting onto our partner. Ideally, however, it is lovely when you have a partner who says, yeah, I could do more of that for you. If that's going to make this learning curve easier for you and faster and smoother with less pain, I can modify a little bit over there, and vice versa. And that's where couples, I think, when they are in that place of love and compassion and really want to help each other, not by doing it for them, but being a facilitator of making it a little bit easier, those are the relationships that can really shine, even if they've gone through some difficult things, even if they've gone through infidelity.
I'm going to assume, take a shot at, you use or talk about in your practice 5 love languages?
Very much, yes. And I don't necessarily know that there's only 5, but I definitely look for couples to explain to one another how they feel love. In self-help books, as we all do, we make categories. People like categories. So yeah, I think it's a great book, and it's a wonderful construct. I think though people will define individually very selectively what really feels loving to them, and they are less inclined to like the categories as much as wanting to be heard by their partner. The one thing though that I took out of that book that was really really valuable is because a lot of people, when they hear that, they think, oh, my partner should read this and my partner will know just exactly how to love me then. And the reality is we have to learn to give ourselves love in that manner also, and have our partners add to that, but not be the sole provider of that. And we also have to learn how to accept love on our partner's terms also, so that we stop misinterpreting so many of the times that somebody is trying to be intentionally loving and it gets lost because there's no other cup to fill it up. So we can tend to get very self-centered in our heads about, well, this way of being loved is the right way, so you have to learn how to do that for me. But in reality, your way of love is also the right way. So they're not right or wrong, they're just different.
I love that. I hadn't actually thought of someone standing their ground about that you have to do it this way, but I can imagine that that is an interpretation that some people have. I definitely love that book and agree that people have to find what works best for them, and it might be a combination of 2 of them, and it isn't a hard and fast, but it gives a language and identification to, oh, I mean, even for me, my husband's love language was acts of service. Mine, and on the top 5, mine, that would be 5 for me. So taking out the trash doesn't give me a warm fuzzy feeling, but I could identify that was his intention, and from there feel love, not because the trash was taken out, but because you're trying to show me that you love me, and I can receive that. It just takes one more step of me translating it.
Absolutely. And that's really the gist here is getting to that level of maturity where you don't have to be right about things, but you can appreciate things that come in different packages and seeing the value in all the variations, but also being able to develop a voice to understand what it is that is your primary language of love. What is it that your partner can do for you and not have your partner have to read your mind, but being able to articulate that in a way to communicate that to your partner in a way that he or she can actually absorb it and find ways to implement that, because that's where a lot of people get lost. Is like, I know women will often say in my office, they'll say, honey, I just want you to be more romantic. He goes, okay, walks out of the office, scratches his head and thinks, oh, romantic, great, all right, I'm going to set up this weekend in San Francisco, off we go, it's going to be amazing. And in her mind, she was thinking romantic. In the morning, he's going to snuggle up to me, he's going to rub my hair, he's going to do something really sweet for me so I don't have to do that. And all of a sudden, they're in an argument because she says, I didn't need you to do all that. You spent too much money. You went over budget. And she's focused on that. And he says, what are you talking about? I did everything I could that was romantic. Now, if she had said, sweetie, I'd like you to be more romantic, and this is the way it would work for me in this style, now he's got tools. Now he knows what he can do. And the likelihood of him being more successful is much higher than if it's just these vague notions that we all throw out, these words, these descriptors that mean so many different things for so many different people.
It's great. That's perfect. Absolutely. And women are, I think, would you agree, more guilty of generality?
Oh, yeah. And women constantly say things in sessions, and my friends too. And I've said it before too. Well, he should just know. Really? Why should he just know? He's a guy for one. So the gender difference alone is going to mean that the misinterpretation is going to be high. And why should he just know? Because, you're an ever changing being, right? There probably are certain things that we all have that are constant in our lives. But oftentimes, what feels good one day, if we're irritable the next day, that very same thing might not feel good. So, an ongoing level of communication with your lover is really important.
I couldn't agree more. Now, do we feel complete with the kinds of relationships that are worth fighting for? Is there anything else you'd like to add to that, and the ones that aren't, like the real clear, he's cheated many times? Because you did mention that we could have an infidelity and still get past that with a healthy start to a relationship. What about, are there like the top 3 or 5 of like no way and time to get out?
Yeah. So again, somebody who is abusive and will not take accountability and feels a strong level of entitlement and justification for their quote unquote bad behavior, those kinds of people are just not going to fare well in any relationship. And you should not become the instructor or the lifelong teacher to try to get them to get it because you think that there's some potential and you know that it would be so easy if they just looked at it your way. By and large, those people have character issues and they're not going to change. But if, the relationship, like I said, let's say, two people have stopped having sex for years and they've lost their communication, they've been raising their children, they got preoccupied, they got consumed with things, but there was a really strong connection to begin with. And then one of them has had an affair, but they come to the realization that that's not the answer to these questions, that's not the answer to these problems, and they actually look at what caused the crack in their relationship and learn how to heal it and seal it, then they can actually sometimes have better relationships than they could have ever imagined before that event. So it's a crisis that often sometimes causes insight and transformation that may never have been there. Most people may have just become complacent and gotten a divorce and just said, well, that didn't work, which would be really tragic in those cases.
I think most people don't really take action and want to grow until major tragedies or things happen to stimulate a desire for better. Unfortunately, I think that's with all things, health, relationships, until you have that scare in you that, oh, I maybe need to do this differently or get some help with this. But we are promoting that people be conscious and want the best for their life in all areas. So, Dr. Debra, we've got people who are listening all around the world, currently in 96 different countries, and some of them, everyone can buy your books, obviously. But I definitely want them to leave with some tips and how they can help their relationship to move forward right now, no matter matter where they are, taking action today. And so when we come back, we're going to go over that. But first, we need to take a break to thank our sponsors.
Get the hottest tips and latest trends for your business success with today's Innovative Woman magazine, a free print and online digital magazine. Plus, receive the special bonus video series, Platforms for Profit, the must-have marketing essentials for outrageous success, taught by media and marketing strategist Kathy Alessandra. Who is today's innovative woman? She's a smart and savvy business owner. She is driven and committed to success. She invests in herself and her business on everything from products to grow her knowledge, services to grow her business, and events to learn and connect with potential clients and customers. You can claim your free subscription today and get it mailed to your home or office at today'sinnovativewoman.com. What does your self-care routine have to do with dating and relationships? Everything. How you treat yourself is the blueprint for how you show others how to treat you. I call this your body blueprint. Ready to change your body blueprint and manifest better quality relationships and physical results? I am giving away free copies of the second edition of Fit to Love, How to Get Physically, Emotionally, and Spiritually Fit to Attract the Love of Your Life, when you subscribe to this podcast. Visit fittolove.tv/ebook to download your copy today. That's FIT2LOVE.tv/ebook. Let's transform your body and your relationships.
Okay, Dr. Debra, what can I do? What are some tips that you have for me on moving forward in a healthy way in my relationship?
The most important tip that I can give you is to be mindful. Be mindful every day about what you're doing in your own life that either produces a positive result or produces a negative result, because that's going to translate over into your relationship as well. If you are thoughtful about who you are and your own accountability, and you bring that into life and in your relationship, it's only going to make things better. And if you discover that your partner does not want to do the same, then it's worthy of thinking about calling it quits. But at least give it that chance. Don't just throw in the towel before you've actually taken a good hard look at yourself as well.
Excellent. Okay, so let's go over, if I want to work with you, how can I work with you?
Well, you can contact me. Best would be to go to my website, because there's just abundance of information and all the specific ways to contact me, which is www.drdebraonline.com, DRDEBRA online.com. And it's actually just been completely redone. So you can buy my books from there. You can listen to my own radio show and lots of other goodies.
Now, can anybody call in to your podcast radio show to ask questions from anywhere?
When it is live, which is on Tuesdays from 1 to 2 Pacific time, we are available to take calls, and then it is downloadable after that. And then, of course, you can't take calls then, but we do take emails to read for other shows.
Excellent. So if anybody has a question that you would like to have answered on Dr. Debra's show, make sure to send her an email and then listen in to her show. Thank you so much for being here. I'm looking forward to having you back. We have another great show coming up with Dr. Debra, Once a Cheater, Always a Cheater. So make sure to stay tuned and check the site, fittolove.tv. All of her information and links will be there. Dr. Debra, thank you so much for being here.
It's awesome. Thank you so much.
Do you want to learn more about your hormone health and how to get it properly tested? Then sign up for our Healthy Hormone Kit at nourishingwellness.com. This kit features healthy eating and lifestyle tips to help you heal your hormones naturally. The Fit to Love podcast show offers you 6 days a week of helpful content to achieve the happy life you deserve. Movement Mondays and Tasty Tuesdays are weekly video casts, while Wellness Wednesdays, Thoughtful Thursdays, Freedom Fridays, and Sexy Saturdays are audio-only shows themed every week to address your holistic life and needs. If this show inspired you, we would love for you to share it and subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us today. Head on over to fittolove.tv for recaps of every show, resources, and to join the community. That's FIT2LOVE.tv. Have a fit and fabulous day.